Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's video, I want to have a look at Avalanche, but before I do, I first want to thank today's sponsor, FairDesk. Now, FairDesk is an exchange, and if you're interested, you can click the link in the description for a 5% deposit bonus, and with no KYC required, you can start trading straight away. Getting straight back into Avalanche, we can see that it's quite a young cryptocurrency. We don't have a lot of historical data to draw from to sort of aid us in our price prediction and analysis of where Avalanche might be going in the midterm. And what we kind of look for with a lot of altcoins is we want 4 years. And it doesn't have to be from halving to halving exactly. We just want about 4 years so we can kind of Frankenstein together a 4-year cycle that correlates with BTC's 4-year cycle and make accurate, well, not accurate, we can base our judgments off these price performances previously. And of course with Avalanche, it's only about, it launched in July of 2020, so we have about 8-7 months left before we finally get 4 years bang on. And usually the 4-year cycle is a bit longer than 4 years. It's usually like 4 years 2 months or 4 years 1 month, whatever. But that's what we kind of look for with these alts. So looking at Avalanche today, it's going to be a bit more difficult than say Cardano, the crypto that we looked at last video. But we will notice a few similarities. If you did watch that Cardano video, you'll notice that I pointed out that Cardano put in a double bottom here. Instead of following this trend that basically all altcoins have been in since basically 2022, I mean, that's when they started dropping, but a lot of them sort of followed this steady trend from late 2022 until today, where they just oscillated within this range. We see the same roughly with Avalanche. We've been oscillating within this range. Cardano had a little breakout. We haven't seen this with Avalanche, which is, you know, there's always variation, and Cardano is a very nice one to look at. But also we saw this double bottom with Cardano as well. And it's interesting that we've seen this in a few altcoins because it shows that it's more of a macro condition rather than just an altcoin or a random coin condition. We saw that both cryptos came back to the same level basically and then rallied when Bitcoin had its big rally a couple of weeks back. But a lot of people have been getting very excited about this rally with alts and with Bitcoin, and rightfully so. Like, Bitcoin has gone up a lot in the last few weeks, and so have a lot of altcoins. Like Solana has been doing amazing, and a lot of these other alts. But I kind of, again, want to be a bit of a rain on your parade sort of thing and say we've seen this quite a few times in the bear market, and it's ultimately just led to lower highs, lower lows. And this is basically so far a lower high. And if we even zoom in, we can see last couple of days, it hasn't been struggling too much, but it's kind of done nothing. We can sort of compare it to this and this, but ultimately I think trying to decide what's going to happen based on the last few days is futile. And it's much better to zoom out and look at what previous candles and explosive moves have looked like. If we take a look at, like, we can see that Cardano has done this ever since the beginning of this year. Beginning of this year, it had a rally up, and then we've moved back down into this range of this resistance, this support and this resistance. And Cardano has made lots of big moves up, only to be followed by big moves down, bigger moves down. I mean, if we take a look at this current rally, if we take it from its very bottom, if we take it from the very bottom and bring it up to the very top, we can see that it was a 44% move. And that's from the exact bottom, the best time to buy, to the best time to sell as of today recording. It was a 45% move. If we go back to, say, this one here, where we go to the low to high, it was a 55% move. So already we haven't done as well here. But over here, there wasn't as much hype. Or maybe there was, and I was just not super clued in. But I wasn't aware of a lot of hype happening around this time for the altcoin space. And Bitcoin hadn't had a big rally like we saw here. It was sort of well, actually it did have a big rally here, not as amazing as recent's rally, but it had a big rally here. And Avalanche kind of, you know, obviously put in a lower low. We take another look at sort of this rally here. This is a smaller one, again a 45% move, basically exactly what we've seen here from low to high. And it gets rejected by this resistance and then moves down. Again, we can even have a look at this first one as well, where if we go from where this resistance line sort of starts to its high, a 45% move. So we've seen this with Avalanche quite a few times this year, 3 times already this year. We've seen Avalanche move 45% or more, sometimes 55%, and then drop down even lower than where it initially started. We can see that here it dropped down 12% below where it started. From here it dropped down, I mean, you could say 27, but really it was more like 20, 15, 17% where it started. And if we go here, we can see it was like 12% below. Sorry, I keep clicking off. It was more like 12% below where we started. And we might be seeing something similar happen here, where if we have a look and zoom in and go, well, if Avalanche wants to follow this pattern and drop another 12%, we could be, let me just zoom out a little bit. We could see something like Avalanche coming down to a $7 sort of range. And I think, to be honest with you, that's it's not impossible, personally. Now, the sort of spanner in the works here is, well, we've just had this double bottom, and we've had it on a lot of altcoins. So it's not just some random fluke, it's something that's actually been decided by macro conditions or whatever, the altcoin market. And it's happened with a lot of alts, so it's not just Avalanche either, it's not just a one-off throwaway. And ever since then, it's rallied up and, put in a higher high from previously where it was. And that is a fair argument to make. I think, yeah, it's very true. It's different. But really, it's not really that different, to be honest with you. And kind of the reason I say that is because, just because it hasn't gone from peak to trough to peak to trough to peak to trough perfectly, doesn't mean that this range is no longer valid. If it's had a little rally here or a little bounce, just because it didn't come down to this line again, doesn't mean that we now throw away this whole line and this year of data that's worked well is now invalid. It hasn't really broken out of this range recently. It did here, but I don't think that's really too important. You can even exclude it if you want, but it's neither here nor there. I don't think these little variations really matter too much, and we've seen this with Cardano as well, where it's reached the height of its sort of resistance, and now we've seen a bit of pullback. And it's the same thing here with Avalanche, where it's reached its height and it started to pull back. Well, it hasn't really pulled back too much, but we can see the price is very volatile, clearly, every day. So it's kind of something to keep your eye on. I do believe it will personally come back down, and I do believe we'll probably bounce off this support line again, whether it's at like $8, whether it's at I don't think we'll go much below $8 if we do sort of come to that range. To be honest, even if it comes back down to $9, that's still a big drop from where it is, but it's definitely doable because we've just rallied from that point. We've just rallied from below $9. If we were here and this pump had never have happened, and I told you, yeah, we're probably likely to see $8 or just below $8, that would be quite reasonable, because it's literally it's a 6% move, and in the crypto space you get 6% moves in Avalanche almost on the daily. 4% is a normal move for Avalanche, and some days we get 10%, 7%. So if I said we'll probably come down to $8, I don't think really anybody would be disputing that. It's only now that we've had this big rally up that people are like, okay, it's only up from here. Bitcoin's at 35k, whatever, Bullrun now. Historically, we've seen that before the halving, about 6 months, 5 months, 7 months before the halving, altcoins and Bitcoin pump, only to then to have one big final sell-off about 4 months before the halving, less, and usually they bottom out about 2-3 months before the halving. So the halving for us is April. It's expected to be April 24th is when it's being projected in for. If we go sort of 2 months back from April and say late February, can we see Cardano coming at least back down to this $9 level in February? Is it possible that Cardano doesn't just go up from here, and instead we get this sell-off like we've seen every other halving year, right before the halving? Basically, we get a liquidity grab, a lot of money comes into not a lot of money gets moved around in the market, ultimately, these coins have still gone down on their Bitcoin pair, which we'll have a look at in a second. But a lot of money is moved around in the market that pushes a lot of prices up in the short term. And then, after a few weeks of realizing, hey, this pump has kind of only come because Bitcoin has pumped, there hasn't really been any super bullish indicators. You can argue the Bitcoin ETF, but there haven't really been any super bullish indicators. Prices have just been going up and people don't really know why. While that's not unusual in crypto, in the middle of a bear market for sustained upward movement, we usually need some sort of narrative or some sort of movement. And historically, all Bitcoin halvings have been a precursor to a bull run. And we currently haven't had our Bitcoin halving. So I would say that we are very unlikely to go into a bull run now, having not had our Bitcoin halving. And also, I also think that these prices do often go down before their Bitcoin halving. They usually have a big pump and then a big sell-off before the Bitcoin halving. And then it's usually good for those altcoins after the Bitcoin halving. Usually we have a steady climb up. However, with like Avalanche here, we can see that although we don't have data from the Bitcoin halving, in 2020 the halving happened in May, the 11th, I think it was. We don't have data for that. But we can see that basically Avalanche did continue to go down until 2021, the year after the halving. And then Avalanche went parabolic and, it went from $2, $3 to $150, which is a huge return. It's like, I can't do the maths on that, 50x, something crazy, basically. So yeah, it was very impressive. But historically, we've seen after the halving, Avalanche's price still goes down. So maybe it's a bit different. Maybe we have a big pump here, and instead of having a big sell-off on Avalanche, we just slowly go down. I'm not too sure. But again, it's kind of something you have to sort of draw. You have to formulate your own opinion on it, in my opinion. It's not something anyone can tell you. You just have to look at the data and decide which you think is more likely to happen. Again, the territory that we're in now is we don't have any previous price action on Avalanche. Nobody does. Nobody on the planet has previous price action of this time in the prior cycle for Avalanche. So everyone is sort of on guesswork. And the most rational thing, in my opinion, is to see what the rest of the crypto market is doing and what the rest of the crypto market has done during these times in the previous cycle. And historically, they've gone down, usually after having a big pump and then a big sell-off. That's not confirmed, but that's what's happened. So again, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Having a look at Avalanche on its Bitcoin pair, we can see that pretty similar story. I mean, we can see the last few days Avalanche has rallied on its Bitcoin pair. So Avalanche has been going up more than Bitcoin has been going up, but that's because Bitcoin sort of reached 35k and then it kind of sat there, where a lot of altcoins now have had little pumps and have been climbing a small bit. But we can ultimately see that it is just higher highs. And you can see my resistance and support line. My support line has played out well, but my resistance hasn't quite held up. We've had a few wicks above, and we can see we've sort of broken above it again now. Whether we see it go down back into this range, who knows? It's sort of wedging, so it's very likely that we'll see some sort of a movement in either direction. Again, usually 1 or 2 months before the halving, we might see altcoins start to pick up on their Bitcoin pairs, but it's usually very close to the halving, and we are still 6 months away. It's basically May, beginning of May, just before May, when the halving is expected. So, I would expect at least 2 more months of poor price action on most altcoin pairs, and I don't think Avalanche is any exception. I mean, to be honest with you, Avalanche has been a pretty poor coin on its USD pair anyway. If we flip back to the USD, we can see that Avalanche is down something like 95%, I think, currently. 92.5% down. And that's current prices. If you want to measure it from its lows, I think that's what's 95% down. Give or take, somewhere around 95% down, which is pretty poor. And again, it's been a bear market, so these altcoins are naturally going to do poorly, and they're going to do poorly against Bitcoin as well. But you know, other cryptos aren't in such a worse position at the moment. And considering Avalanche is ranked 20 by market cap, it's not great, to be honest with you. It's one of them coins that it also went below its yearly open pretty quickly. I mean, it wicked below it in the summer, and then it sort of, I'll zoom in so you guys can see, it wicked below its yearly open in the summer, and then it had a little rally up, and then it went back down below. And it's only recently now, like literally this last week, that we've managed to get above our yearly open on Avalanche. And now people are super bullish on this and calling for bull runs. I just personally see it as another pump in this range where it's been rejected. But I've already said that, so I'm not going to waste your time anymore. Very similar on its Bitcoin pair, really, and you know what it tells us. I mean, we can see a peak here in November, late November, on its Bitcoin pair, where it also peaked on its USD. Another little rally in December, early January of 2022, and then ever since then, just a downward movement. Again, sort of holding this sort of support line all the way down since mid 2022. It kind of speaks for itself, to be honest with you. You've come back into this sort of value range that I've predicted. I don't see us going too much lower on this pair, but I do definitely see us going lower in the short term. Again, I want to remind you all, long term, I am very bullish on Avalanche. I love the coin. I do actually currently have some at the moment. I was very lucky. I sort of bought around the $9 range, so I'm very happy with that move, to be honest with you, and I'm glad I did. But I do think it will go lower, and then hopefully in the next bull run it will do very well. But at the moment, I don't really have too much to say about it, other than this is just another lower high, in my opinion. Again, we can see like Avalanche sort of only took off like at the beginning of January 2021. It continued to go down on its Bitcoin pair up until the bull run year. Literally, as soon as the bull run year started, we had a reversal, and Avalanche went crazy on its USD and Bitcoin pair, which is unlike, say, Cardano, which went sideways basically for the pre-halving year. It went up into the halving, and then afterwards it slowly went up, but we didn't see anything crazy. And then as soon as the bull run year as soon as it turned into the bull run year, the year after the halving, Cardano went crazy, and we saw this with Avalanche as well here, evidently. And then, you know, a bit of a pullback in the summer, which we do often see, sort of a summer lull, and then another explosive move towards the end of the year on its Bitcoin pair. And this is normal for most alts, but what is a bit unusual about Avalanche is that it did sort of sell and go down right up until the post-halving year, and then it went parabolic. So it just goes to show that with these altcoins, you know, they don't all play out the same. Some of them pump much later than others. Some of them do quite poorly and only do very well for a short amount of time. I mean, Avalanche was literally a window of a year of going up and then basically down for the next two so far anyway. I mean, it's been going down ever since 2021 on its Bitcoin pair and its USD pair. And I predict it will continue to go down. And also the year before, the data that we have, the 4, 5, 6 months, 5 months that we have of the halving year, it was just down on that as well. So I would expect more pain for Avalanche over the next year, to be honest with you. Like, from what we can draw from this, now this was a different time. I always say that you shouldn't really judge a coin's price action after its launch, because, you know, a lot of it is just hype. Nobody really knows what the coin is. It's just totally speculation. And then once, you know, it's had a bit of time to establish itself and more information is out there and it's had a bit of battle testing, you know, actually functioning and providing a service or a payment method, whatever, then we can sort of start to gauge its price more accurately. But, you know, so you can even disregard, to be honest, these sort of few months before the bull run. It's kind of up to you. Again, it's all up to you. Like, these are things that I might do that you might disagree with, and that's totally fine. But I wouldn't really use this data, to be honest with you, and I wouldn't do it for any altcoin, like, you know, including Ethereum, Cardano, XRP, Solana, whatever you want. I wouldn't use it. So really, I would only draw from here and saying that once the bull run year came along, Avalanche did well. I'm hoping it will do the same next bull run in 2025, but we've still got a long way to go from there. So hopefully Avalanche goes lower and I can buy at a much better price. You know, that's my outlook on it. But I think that about wraps it up for this video, guys. I think I've said everything that I want to say. Again, I don't think we'll return to these levels, in my opinion. I can't see Avalanche going down below $5, to be honest. And to be honest, if we did go low like this, I think it would be a wick where we'd see Avalanche go down for a day, you know, a few hours. It would wick down to this level and then very quickly be bought up again. But again, that's just my opinion. So if you're looking to buy Avalanche or you're waiting to buy Avalanche, I would say sort of this $9 range again. If you're holding long term, I think you'd be very happy with that, especially if Avalanche returns to its all-time high of 150. You know, you're making a 15x there if you sell at the top, which you're probably not. Nobody sells at the top, or very few people do, but you know, it's neither here nor there. Yeah, that's about it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe, like, comment down below if you're holding Avalanche. Thanks very much, take care, and peace.